In today's video, I'm going to teach you guys how to build this unique sofa table. It's got a really cool design. I'm excited to show this table build for you guys. At any time, if you click the description box below, I will have a link for the DIY plans in case you want to build this yourself. But if you love this video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications. I really appreciate your help and your support. Let's go!
This video is made possible by my sponsor, Delta Machinery. Let's start by cutting the boards for the top, but before we do that, let's double check on our miter saw and make sure it's nice and square. This is always a good idea before you start any project. These top planks I'm cutting roughly at 80 inches long for the moment since they haven't been milled or squared up yet, but the final dimension will be 78. Let's take a moment and get a beauty shot of this cruiser. This thing is a beast.
Okay guys, so I just finished milling up these 3 planks, which are going to serve as the top to this console table build that we're building for this video. As you can see, they're cleaned up, they look much better, but I did the milling process and I'm getting ready to move over to the glue up stage of this, but I wanted to stop for a minute and I wanted to give you guys a little glue up information that I think is pertinent to when you're doing a glue up. Come over here and I'll show you.
We need to prepare for seasonal wood movement when you're working with solid wood, so be sure to alternate each plank so the grain is opposite from one another. Down, up, like the markings I made. Before I apply the glue and clamp these boards up, I want you to take note of the reference marks I made. You can go about this in a number of different ways. I like to just do a simple 1, 2, 3, so that way you keep each plank in order before you clamp it. But a lot of woodworkers like to do an A diagram. Basically, you just take the lines, trace an A, and as long as you line them up, you have the planks in the right location. Either way, you're good to go. Okay, moving on. Let's apply some glue and get these boards clamped up. I'm ready to get this project rolling. I'm going to be using Titebond 3 for this project, and I'm using a silicone roller. That's right, I said silicone, which means it's going to be easy water cleanup. Highly recommend it. Alright, now that we got clamps on this top, we're going to let it sit for about 4 hours under equal pressure. But be sure to wipe off the excess glue with a wet rag. Not soaking wet, just damp. We just want to wipe off the excess. I'm trying something new with this project. I'm using my CNC machine to cut out each piece of the base. I came up with this design recently and I made a file for it and I wanted to try it out on the CNC and see if it could do the heavy lifting. Man, it did the job. So impressed. But now that I've cut out all the pieces for the base, I'm basically just going to apply glue and stack each piece up until I have them approximately 8 inches thick. It's going to take 4 per leg. After you do that, just clamp them up and let them sit for about 3 to 4 hours. If you don't have a CNC, don't get upset. Just pull out a jigsaw and get it done. Nothing to it. Going back to the miter station for a bunch more rough cuts. Got to get all this lumber milled up and ready to go for the next stage.
Alright guys, so we're getting ready to make the top plate. I've already milled the pieces up and got my reference marks made. The top plate will serve as a piece between the base and the top, and this will allow for attachment of the top as well. Check this out. These are the reference marks that I made. We are going to use a Festool domino joiner to align these, but it's also great if you mark all your pieces. I've got them numbered and I have a little diagram that keeps me in line.
Using the domino joiner is really awesome, but don't worry, if you don't have one, just use a doweling jig. It works just as well, as the Festool domino joiner is really expensive and you might have to work your way up to it. But once you do, I promise you it's worth it. After applying glue to all your pieces, now you're going to attach the tenons, or dominoes. I'm not sure what it is about this process that is so satisfying, but I highly enjoy it. It's kind of therapeutic. Just like before when we clamped up the top, we're going to do the same thing for the top plate. We're going to let it sit under equal clamping pressure for a few hours, and don't forget, wipe off the excess glue. Let's cut the bottom shelf while we're waiting for the glue ups to dry. Let's talk about this cruiser too. It has got this back folding arm attachment which is really unique. It's a big time space saver. Never mind the dust, this is just a messy project. And oh, by the way, check out the shadow line for dialing it in, almost like a laser. Pretty cool.
Alright guys, so this point in the build, I've got the two balustrades, if you would call that, for the console table built and cut out and milled. And now I have the base feet, which will go underneath these. These are the blocks, but I wanted to show you this stage. I've already got them milled up, but when you have big blocks like this, you'll get a bunch of uneven edges. And most miter saws, even a 12-inch one, won't cut all the way through a block this big. So I'm going to show you how I cut the ends of these blocks perfectly square on my bandsaw. Let's go. Okay guys, so I'm on my bandsaw. I've got a 1-inch blade for resawing, but I use this resaw blade for slicing the ends of these blocks off. So this is the jig that I made for doing this. There's many ways to go about getting these ends of big blocks flat, but this is by far, hands down, the best way I've came up with so far, and that was creating this jig. Also, if you're interested, I have plans in the description box below, but let's get started.
This part goes without saying, but just place the block on the jig and push it through. Once you get one side cut off, flip it over and cut the opposite side. If you had your doubts about this jig cutting perfect, check this out. I'm going to put a level on it and I'd say it's pretty dialed in.
You got the blocks all milled up, totally flat, level with one another, and the ends cut off. Now we're going to take a template and we are going to trace it on the block to be able to cut it out. So let's do this.
When working with bandsaw work and cutting out of large blocks, it's very important to make relief cuts in every possible point that you can make. It makes the project go so much easier. However, I didn't apply that video clip to this footage because I had some issues. But who cares? Let's move on. Let's start drilling the holes for the bottom feet that we just carved out on the bandsaw. I'm basically just going to recess a bunch of holes on the bottom of these feet. One, the holes for the adjustable levelers, so the sofa table will be level, and two, for the holes that we're going to attach to the bases. We're going to use lag bolts for that. Let's apply some glue to the bottoms of these bases before we attach them to the base feet. We're just going to apply glue in the areas that are going to serve as the attachment. Then we're basically going to apply clamps, put it under equal clamping pressure for about 3 to 4 hours, and then we're going to apply the lag bolts. No dominoes or dowels needed for this, because when you're working with large blocked joinery, you get very, very minimal seasonal wood movement. So it's not a problem when you do large glue ups like this. Time for the top plate attachment. I've applied glue and made reference marks all over the piece for easy alignment. We're going to attach the top plate with lag bolts and screws from the top side. Let's attach some bottom supports for the bottom shelf. I'm going to use glue and 3-inch screws to attach it. I've also used a biscuit joiner to cut out some slots for Z-clips to allow for seasonal wood movement. Installing the bottom shelf. I love a snug fit, and this fit is snug. Using Z-clips for the attachment process of the bottom shelf, this will allow for seasonal wood movement. Basically, as the wood contracts and expands, the Z-clip will move in the slot cut by the biscuit joiner, so it will allow the wood to move instead of holding it down and creating warpage. That's a pro tip. This table is turning out really cool. I hope you guys are enjoying this video so far, because I am definitely digging this build. Super fun project for me. Using a biscuit joiner, we're going to cut slots all around the inside perimeter of this top plate. This will serve as a Z-clip attachment for the top, thus allowing seasonal wood movement.
So I've got the console table flipped over upside down, and I'm about to install these threaded inserts and these adjustable levelers for the feet. This is really like a pro tip. I highly recommend doing it. You can never count on floors when you get to a client's house to be perfectly level. Let's face it, no matter what home you go to, the floors are always going to be just a tad bit off, and the last thing you want is a piece of furniture that teeters or rocks once you get to the client's home. So let's definitely do this, and let's get it going. Let's do this.
I'm going to apply a small amount of glue to the threaded inserts before I install them. I think this is just a really nice technique. It really secures the levelers in place, and it's built for longevity. So definitely do it, and don't skip this step. We want to keep our standards very high in reference to quality. Alright, we're almost done with this project. Pretty much the final step. Let's place the top on. I'm going to use a kreg jig marking tool that helps me with easy alignment. I've got it dialed in to 2 inches on either end and 1.5 inches on the front and the back. It's really easy to use for alignment, and it's a cool tool to have. Now that the top is completely aligned, secure it in place with a couple of clamps while you go around the inside of the table and attach the Z-clips and screws. We're almost done, guys, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications, and also like it. Like my video. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. See you next time.